I remember walking into the house after my sleepover, feeling that familiar sense of comfort that came with being back home. I was tired, but all I could think about was how excited I was to finally get back to gaming. It had been an exhausting week with school, assignments, and everything else piling up. My PS5 was sitting in the living room, just waiting for me to jump in and escape into whatever game I was into at the moment. That's all I wanted: peace, relaxation, and a bit of fun. But when I walked into the living room, something was off. The TV was still on, but my PS5, it wasn't there. I froze, thinking I had missed it somehow. Maybe it had been moved for cleaning or something. But no, it was gone. My console, the one I'd worked so hard to buy, was nowhere to be seen. I checked every room, even my sister's, but nothing. No PS5. I tried calling my mom. No answer. Then I called my dad. "Hey, did you move my PS5? I can't find it anywhere." There was a long pause before my dad finally responded. "We'll talk when you get home." His voice was flat, like he was trying to hide something, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I hung up and felt that pit in my stomach, the kind you get when you know something's wrong, but you're not sure what. By the time I got to the kitchen, the only thing I could see was my sister's obnoxious pink sneakers by the door, the one she always wore when she was heading out to do some mindless shopping. It hit me all at once. I knew what had happened, but I couldn't bring myself to believe it. There was no way. Not my PS5. Not the thing I'd saved up for. The thing I'd barely had time to use. No. But there was my gut screaming at me that it was gone, and my sister was somehow involved. She always had this knack for getting what she wanted, and I had a feeling that my PS5 was just the latest thing on her list. I stormed up to my parents' room, hoping maybe they'd have some kind of explanation. "Where's my PS5? I demanded as soon as I walked through the door, my voice barely keeping the anger in check. My mom looked at me, her face instantly turning pale, while my dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "It's gone, honey," my mom said softly, like it was the most casual thing in the world. "We sold it." I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at her, hoping she was joking. But she wasn't. She wasn't even close. I shook my head, trying to wrap my mind around it. "You sold it? You sold my PS5? My voice cracked on the words. "Why? Why would you do that?" My dad, who usually just stayed quiet and let my mom handle the tough stuff, finally spoke up. "We needed the money, okay?" He sounded so calm, so detached, like this was all just part of some routine that made sense. But it didn't. It didn't make sense at all. Needed the money? What for what? "You sold my PS5, so my sister could go shopping." My words felt like they were ripping through the air. "Why didn't you just ask me? I could have helped. I've been saving money." "You don't understand," my mom interrupted, cutting me off with that same cold, emotionless tone. "We didn't want to burden you. Your sister wanted to go out, and we didn't have the money to cover it." "Are you serious right now?" I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. "So, what? This was just some kind of trade-off? My PS5 for a shopping spree?" My sister, who had been sitting in the corner texting on her phone, finally looked up. "I didn't ask them to sell it," she said, like she was the innocent one here. Her words felt hollow, distant. I stared at her, the anger bubbling up again. "Don't act like you didn't know. You always get what you want. And now I get to sit here, while you spend whatever's left of my gaming system to buy whatever crap you think you need." "Enough," my mom snapped. "We did what we thought was best. Your sister wanted something, and we made it happen." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, break something, anything to let out the frustration that was building inside me. But I just stood there, completely frozen. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. My PS5 was gone. And for what? A shopping trip? A few bags of clothes? It didn't make sense. It would never make sense. As I stood there, my dad sighed. "Look, we didn't think it would be a big deal. We sold it for a good price. You'll be okay. We can get you another one when we're more stable." Another one. It was that simple to him. Another PS5. Like I could just walk into a store and buy one again. Like it wasn't something I had poured hours of my life into working for. Something I had wanted for so long, sacrificed for, and finally earned. And now it was gone. Gone because my sister needed to go out shopping, because apparently that was a higher priority than anything else in our house. I turned around and walked out of the room, the anger rising in my chest, but the tears threatening to fall. I didn't know where to go, what to do, or how to fix this. All I knew was that I couldn't stay here, not with them, not with the people who had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I grabbed my jacket, slammed the door behind me, and left. I didn't know where I was going. The night air bit at my skin, sharp and unforgiving, but it did nothing to dull the storm raging in my mind. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours, down streets I didn't know, past houses and shops that blurred together. The weight of everything felt suffocating. My PS5, the thing I had worked so hard for, was gone, vanished. And for what? To buy a bunch of things my sister didn't even need. The thought made my hands ball in a fist, the urge to break something becoming almost overwhelming. It was just a PS5, but it wasn't just a PS5. It was mine, something I'd earned. And now, it was gone just like that, without a single word of consideration or apology. I didn't want to be home. I couldn't even think about going back, not when everything felt like a lie. My parents, people who I thought cared about me, had sold something that meant the world to me, without even consulting me, without even considering what it might do to me. I was just a kid to them, just a thing that could be replaced when it wasn't convenient anymore. I couldn't get past that. My sister was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone like it was just another Tuesday, and all I could think about was how little anyone cared about what I felt. I wanted answers. I wanted to scream, but instead, I just kept walking. After a while, I ended up at Alex's house. He was the only person I felt like I could talk to right now, the only one who wouldn't just tell me to get over it or act like it wasn't a big deal. I rang the doorbell, my fingers twitching with nervous energy. A few seconds later, Alex opened the door, looking surprised to see me at this hour. He didn't ask any questions, just stepped aside and let me in. "Everything okay?" he asked as I plopped down on the couch, running my hands through my hair. "No," I muttered, shaking my head. "I don't even know what to do. I'm freaking out, man. My parents sold my PS5. They sold it for my sister's shopping." He raised an eyebrow, clearly not understanding at first. "Sold it? Like gone?" "Gone," I said, my voice tight. "And I don't even get why. My sister wants new clothes, and they sell my PS5 to fund it. It doesn't make sense. It was my PS5. I saved for months to get it, and they just sold it without asking me, without even telling me first." I was shaking now, anger rising in my chest, making it hard to sit still. I didn't want to look weak in front of Alex, but I felt like I was about to explode. Alex just sat there for a second, processing, and then he shrugged, like it was no big deal. "I get that it sucks," he said slowly, "but what are you going to do about it?" I stared at him, dumbfounded. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to get it back, obviously." "Get it back," he repeated, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Dude, it's gone. It's not like they're going to buy it back just because you're pissed." That wasn't the point. I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about buying it again. It was about the fact that they'd taken it from me, that they didn't even ask me, and that they just handed it over for a bunch of clothes. I felt like a fool. "I don't know," I said, pacing the room now. I don't know what to do. I don't even know where they sold it. I just want to get it back. I need it back." Okay, Alex said, his tone shifting as he stood up. "Look, let's not just sit here feeling sorry for you. We need to figure out who bought it." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we need to figure out where it went. Who bought it? That's the only way you're getting it back, right?" I thought for a moment. "Yeah, but my parents are keeping it from me. They don't want to tell me who bought it." "Well, there's a solution for that too," Alex said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "We do a little detective work. I'm sure we can figure it out." I felt a rush of hope. Maybe this wouldn't be as impossible as I thought. Maybe there was a way to get it back after all. But as Alex and I brainstormed, something else gnawed at me. What if my parents weren't just being careless? What if they were hiding something bigger? Something more than just my PS5 being sold for some shopping trip? "We can track it down," Alex said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Look at the pawn shops around town. Maybe check with some of the local secondhand stores. But we can't waste time. The longer we wait, the less likely we'll get it back." I didn't care about anything else at that point. I just wanted to find out who had my PS5 and take it back. It wasn't just a game console. It was the last bit of my sense of control. If I couldn't even hold on to something I'd earned, what else was there? "All right," I said, standing up and grabbing my jacket. Let's go. I don't care how late it is. We're doing this tonight. Alex smirked, like he was enjoying the sudden shift in my mood. That's the spirit. Let's get your console back then. We'll go to every store in town if we have to. We walked out into the night, the cold air cutting through my jacket, but I didn't care. I was on a mission now. My PS5 was out there, and I was going to find it. I wasn't going to let my parents or anyone else tell me it was just gone. They didn't get to take everything from me. Not without a fight. We started with the closest pawn shop. It was a hole-in-the-wall kind of place, the kind where you'd expect to find broken electronics and old tools. But Alex was already scanning the shelves, looking for the familiar blue box of the PS5. We spent the next hour running around town, checking every shop we could think of. No luck. But I wasn't giving up. We were close. I could feel it. By the time we reached the fourth shop, I started to lose hope. Maybe it was already too late. Maybe someone had bought it before we even got there. But then, as we turned the corner, I saw something that made my heart stop. There, sitting on a shelf in a dusty electronics store, was my PS5. It was unmistakable. The same one. The one I had worked for. My fingers itched to grab it, but I forced myself to stay calm. Alex, I whispered, pointing. There it is. That's mine. His eyes went wide as he saw what I was looking at. No way. You've got to be kidding me. But I wasn't kidding. This was it. The moment I had been working toward, the moment I had fought for. And now, finally, I was going to take it back. We stood there for a few seconds, the reality of what I was seeing sinking in. My PS5 was just sitting on a dusty shelf in the corner of this rundown store, like it was just another piece of junk. I couldn't believe it. After everything, all the anger and frustration, all the walking around town trying to find it, here it was, in front of me. It didn't make sense. My brain was still trying to catch up with what I was looking at, but everything felt wrong. I felt numb, but also this surge of adrenaline flooding through me. This wasn't just some random store. This was the moment. Alex noticed my hesitation, and his voice broke through my thoughts. What are you waiting for? Just walk up to the counter, tell them it's yours, and get it back. I could feel the heat rise in my face. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I didn't move. Something didn't sit right with me. I was ready to take it, to grab it, to storm up to that counter and demand it back, but then I remembered something. My parents hadn't just sold it to a random pawn shop. They had sold it, and I didn't know the full story. My gut told me that there was more to this. It wasn't just about getting my PS5 back. There was something I was missing, and I had to figure it out before I could take it. You okay? Alex asked, his voice now filled with concern. I'm not sure, I said, my eyes glued to the console. There's something off about this. It's like it's not just about the PS5. There's something else going on. Alex frowned, clearly confused. What do you mean? It's your PS5. It's right there. You don't need to think about it too much. Go get it. I didn't answer him right away. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. I had to be sure. I wasn't going to just take it without knowing the whole truth. After a few more seconds, I walked up to the counter. My hands were clammy, my legs a little shaky, but I forced myself to approach the guy behind the counter. He was this middle-aged dude with a scruffy beard and a tired look in his eyes. He barely even looked up when I got there. Can I help you? He asked, as though he was waiting for me to make some kind of small talk before getting to the point. I took a deep breath and forced the words out. That PS5 on the shelf? Is it for sale? He glanced up at the shelf and then back at me. Yeah, it's for sale. We got it a couple of days ago. You interested in buying it? I didn't answer right away. I was trying to gather my thoughts, trying to figure out what the hell had happened to make my PS5 end up here. Finally, I spoke. Where did you get it from? He shrugged, clearly uninterested in me or my question. People bring in stuff, we buy it, and we sell it. You know the deal. Why do you care? The way he said it so dismissive made me want to snap. But I couldn't. I had to be calm. I couldn't let him see how badly this was affecting me. I need to know who sold it, I said, my voice sharp. It's important. The guy gave me a long look, like he was trying to decide whether or not he should even bother. Then, after a few moments of silence, he shrugged again. Look, kid, I don't know who sold it. Some guy came in with a bag full of stuff, including that PS5, and we bought it. It's not like we ask questions about where people get their stuff. We just sell it. I didn't know what to think. I was so close. It was right there, but I didn't know who had sold it. What if my parents weren't the ones who even brought it here? What if someone else had taken it from them and sold it? My hands were shaking now, and I had to fight to keep my composure. Can you check your records? See if there's any information on who sold it? I asked, desperate. The guy seemed to think about it for a second before he nodded. Sure, but I don't have much on this one. We get so many people coming in, it's hard to keep track of all of them. He reached under the counter and pulled out a small ledger, flipping through the pages until he found what he was looking for. Here, this is the sale. Guy named Tom. Paid in cash. That's all I've got. Tom, I repeated, my mind spinning. Do you know where I can find him? The guy looked at me a little annoyed now. Kid, I don't know. You could try asking around, but I'm not your damn detective. I didn't care. Tom, that was a start. It wasn't much, but it was something. And I was going to find him. I was going to find whoever this Tom was and get the full story. I turned to Alex, who had been standing quietly next to me, watching the whole exchange. He could see the frustration on my face. You good? He asked again, sounding a little concerned. I'm fine, I said, trying to hide the panic that was rising inside me. But this guy, Tom, he sold it. I need to find him. Alex raised an eyebrow. You think he knows who really sold it? Or do you think your parents did this and are covering for each other? I didn't know what to think anymore. I didn't know who was lying and who was telling the truth. My mind kept spinning, trying to piece it all together. I didn't have time to figure it out right now. I just needed answers. I needed to confront Tom. Let's go, I said, feeling a renewed sense of urgency. We're finding this Tom guy. Now! We left the store, and I started thinking about where to look next. Tom. It wasn't a lot to go on, but it was something. Maybe the guy at the pawn shop didn't know anything else, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to stop until I got to the bottom of this, no matter what. If I had to track down every Tom in the city, I would. But as we walked out into the street, I realized something. The more I thought about it, the more I started to suspect that Tom might just be the tip of the iceberg. There was more to this. My PS5 wasn't just sold for a quick buck, it was part of something bigger. I didn't know what yet, but I was going to find out. And no matter how far I had to go, I wasn't going to stop until I had the truth. I didn't know where to begin. Tom was just a name, and that was all I had to go on. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, but it was buried under layers of confusion and dread. I had no idea who this Tom guy was, no idea where to even start looking. But there was one thing I did know. I wasn't going to give up. My PS5 was out there, and I was going to find it. Alex, who had been quietly walking beside me, seemed to sense my frustration. You good? He asked again, his voice a little more insistent this time. I don't know, man, I said, dragging my hands through my hair. I feel like I'm chasing ghosts. Tom could be anyone, and my parents are probably hiding something. This whole thing feels wrong. I'm not just going to let it go. Alex shrugged. I get it, but at least you have something to go on now. We got a name. That's better than nothing. I nodded, but it didn't feel like enough. I was running out of options, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my parents weren't telling me the whole truth. There was a bigger picture, and I was just standing in the corner, unable to see it. Tom was just a piece of the puzzle, but I had no idea how he fit in. We walked in silence for a while, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. Finally, Alex spoke up. Okay, how about this? He said, turning to me. We hit up some local places. Maybe he's a regular around town. If he's selling stuff like that, he might have done it before. If we ask the right people, we might be able to find him. I didn't like the idea of asking random people about someone I didn't even know, but it was better than sitting around doing nothing. I didn't have many options left. I agreed, and we headed to a cafe that Alex said was a hangout spot for some of the local characters, people who might know something about Tom, or at least have heard of him. The cafe was dimly lit and had that smell of stale coffee and old wood. It was exactly the kind of place where people came to sit for hours, lost in their own world or making deals on the side. We walked in, and the place immediately felt off. The regulars were scattered across the tables, a mix of tired faces and sketchy-looking characters who seemed to know each other well. There were murmurs of conversation, but the atmosphere was tense, like a secret was floating just out of reach. Do you think anyone here will know anything? I asked, feeling more out of place than ever. Let's see. Alex said. I'm sure someone here has seen him, or at least knows who he is. We just need to ask the right people. I wasn't so sure, but we sat at a table in the corner trying to blend in. Alex leaned back in his chair, scanning the room, his eyes narrowing as he observed the different people. I wasn't great at this kind of thing, talking to strangers, try to get information, but I knew I had to at least try. A few minutes passed, and just as I was about to give up, Alex nodded toward a man sitting by the window, a grizzled guy with a long coat and a drink in his hand. He looked like he belonged here. His eyes were hidden under the brim of a hat, and he wasn't talking to anyone. He was just sitting there, staring out the window. That guy, Alex said quietly, he looks like someone who knows things. Let's go talk to him. I didn't feel ready for this, but before I could protest, Alex was already getting up, walking over to the guy. I reluctantly followed. Alex slid into the chair across from the man, and I stood awkwardly beside him. The man didn't acknowledge us at first, but Alex didn't wait for an invitation. Hey, you know anyone named Tom around here? Alex asked bluntly. The man's eyes flicked toward us, just for a second, before he went back to staring out the window. For a long time, he didn't say anything, and I started to wonder if he was even going to answer. But then, finally, his voice broke the silence. Tom, he said, almost like the word tasted bitter in his mouth. What do you want with him? Alex didn't skip a beat. We're looking for him. He might have sold something to a pawn shop recently. Maybe you've seen him around. The man let out a low chuckle. Pawn shop, huh? Yeah, I know Tom. He's the kind of guy who'd do something like that. Always looking to make a quick buck. But you're better off leaving him alone. He's trouble. Why is that? I asked before I could stop myself. The man didn't look at me, but his tone turned serious. He's not someone you want to get mixed up with. You really want to go digging into his business? You don't know what you're getting yourself into. I felt a chill run down my spine. I was starting to feel like I had made a mistake. The more I learned, the more I realized that maybe this wasn't just about a stupid PS5. This was starting to feel like something bigger, something I wasn't prepared for. Alex leaned in, his voice quieter. We're just trying to find him. We don't need anything from him, just some answers. The man seemed to consider this for a moment. Then,